a lot of like newbie wholesalers, they'll think that, hey, I found a property, now I can wholesale it, right? Like you have to send offers and get those offers accepted to then be able to wholesale the property via an assignment. So it's not just about finding the deals, it's also about knowing how to structure your wholesale contract, get it accepted, and then now you have an asset which you can now monetize.
Right. So with this completed, let's say everything goes well, it's sent back to me. Now I have the legal right to assign it to anybody I want, most likely my cash buyer, and that's this baby right here.
Exactly, yeah. So once you have your cash buyer who's ready to go, who likes the deal, they may need to set eyes on it most of the time. They might have to do their walkthrough, like we talked about. Once they're ready to go, then you will send them this assignment addendum to now memorialize their commitment to purchasing the property under the terms of your original agreement. So what the assignment addendum will do is transfer your rights to this new to the new buyer in exchange for a assignment fee. So we can just walk through this as well, just so everybody knows how to fill it out. Again, this is available for download, so the best way to get the most out of this walkthrough is just to have it in front of you, print it out just like we did here, and so you can even fill it out as we go along. So the assignment addendum is between the assignor, which would be the contract holder. Let's say Tim is the purchaser on the purchase agreement, and then me, Ryan, I am the assignee. Let's say I'm the end buyer, okay? So you're the assignor, I'm the assignee. We put our names there or our business entities. So your name needs to match what's on the purchase agreement because that's who has the right to buy that property. So the assignor and assignee, when mentioned together, may be referred to as the parties. So we are now the parties of this agreement. On the day of the month of the year, you would simply put the date that you entered into the contract. The same date that's on your contract, the assignor entered into a purchase agreement with the seller as the sellers and the assignor as the buyers for the right to purchase the property located at, and then you put your address. So again, this is where you just want to make sure the parties are aligning with your original purchase agreement. The date is the same. So you're essentially identifying what contract you're assigning in this section and who are the parties involved in that original agreement. So again, make sure the address is right and make sure there's no typos or anything wrong.
Really quick, does the day, so on the day of year, does that need to match with anything on here, the purchase agreement?
Yeah, so if there is a date of the agreement itself, sometimes it's stated at the top of the agreement, but if not, then I would put the last day that it was signed. So whenever it was the effective date, so when the seller signs the purchase agreement is basically the effective date of the contract.
Right, and so it'll be the same thing on this
one.
Cool.
So that's officially when like the contract is formed, and so you would want to go ahead and use that date. Sometimes like in realtor purchase agreements, they will have a date that the contract is actually written at the top, which might be different from when it was actually accepted. So in that scenario, I would use the date that the contract was written, but you could also use the effective date, which is when the seller actually accepts it.
Got it.
So in this case, you would use the date the seller accepts it, which is when they entered into the purchase agreement. You would list the sellers there, as well as the assignor, which in this case would be you, Tim. And a copy of the agreement has been attached and can be furnished upon request. Again, we're referring to the purchase agreement. Assigner wishes to sell their rights and interest in the purchase agreement, and the assignee wishes to buy all of the assigner's rights and interest and accepts receiving title and interest in the property. In exchange, the assignee agrees to be responsible for and paying the assignor an assignment fee of, and then this is where the magic happens. You get to decide how much you want to charge as far as the assignment fee. So how much would you like to put here? How much are you going to charge me for this deal, Tim, to take over this property?
$10,000. A modest yet good fee for myself.
Absolutely. I'd say that's very fair.
Yeah.
Great opportunity. So this is where you would state your assignment fee. So also known as the wholesale fee, your wholesale assignment fee, that would specifically go there. So $ down to the penny, you want to list it there on or before the closing or settlement date. If the assignment fee is paid at closing and through escrow, this fee shall be made out to the assignor on the HUD settlement statement. So this sentence right here basically gives you the right to receive your assignment fee through the title company, through the escrow company, right? You're going to be on the settlement statement, which I think is great for a number of reasons. You'll get paid as soon as the transaction closes, right? The seller's going to get their money, and at the same time, you're also going to get your assignment fee.
Mm-hmm.
So it is important to fill this out. The title company will get this agreement so that they can also pay it through the closing of the transaction. You're going to be listed on the buyer's, my side of the settlement statement, and so that's good. Also, it's good as a wholesaler, as you're building your track record, it's good to be on the settlement statements so that you can now show that you're building a track record of closing deals, of being involved in acquisitions. So you're not just like a ghost as far as the deals you're doing. Like you have a paper trail of some of the deals you're doing. So when you're raising money from a hard money lender, a private money lender, transaction lender, you can now demonstrate that you've been involved in real estate deals. So something that I think some wholesalers miss. Ultimately, it's better to get paid than not. But if you can be on the HUDs, on the settlement statements, then I would opt to do so.
Yeah, I imagine after my first wholesale fee, I'll want to do it again. So yeah, kind of good for me to build that reputation using those lines right there. Yeah,
Yep.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So moving on, furthermore, the assignee agrees to pay a non-refundable deposit to the assignor due at the execution of this assignment of blank dollars, right? You can put however much you want there, which is refundable only if the title is not clear and conveyable. This deposit is a credit towards the assignment fee. This assignment is not effective until the deposit is paid and both parties sign this assignment addendum. So what is this non-refundable deposit? So the assignment fee would be due at closing. However, if I like to use this non-refundable deposit as a way for the person, the end buyer, the person I'm assigning this contract to put their money where their mouth is, so that they are now, we might, if it's a $10,000 assignment fee, we might ask for $5,000 non-refundable upfront,
Right.
which is paid immediately to make this assignment agreement effective. So they are now committed non-refundable into this deal $5,000, which for me, it might cover my earnest money deposit and then some, right? It might be my profit. So that way, if they don't close on this deal, I'm still getting paid, or you're still getting paid on this wholesale deal because they've already put money into this
Right.
property.
Yeah.
So this is a protection, again, if you've submitted non-refundable money to the seller, or if you just want to make sure this buyer is going to close, this is an opportunity for them to put money up to make this assignment effective, especially if it's your first time working with a cash buyer and you don't have a relationship with them.
Yeah.
Then you just want to make sure that they're going to perform and they have some skin in the game, because otherwise, what do they have to lose?
Right.
So, and then and it's important to mention that it's a credit towards the assignment fee. So even if you put $5,000 there, the total assignment fee is going to be whatever you put on that first line. So if it was $10,000 assignment fee, $5,000 non-refundable deposit, then they would owe the balance of $5,000 at closing. So it's a credit towards the assignment fee. All right, so the terms and conditions are really just some more protections. I'll just run through it real quick just so we can get through this entire agreement. The parties agree to the following terms and conditions. 1, assignee is agreeing to all terms, clauses, and conditions of the purchase agreement, and by executing this assignment below, is agreeing to be liable for any and all of assignor's obligations and liabilities in the purchase agreement. Further, assignee hereby agrees to indemnify and hold assignor harmless from any claims, fees, expenses, costs, demands, liabilities, or obligations related to this assignment, the purchase agreement, and the property. So, What that essentially means is that the cash buyer, right, me in the scenario, whoever's taking over the contract is agreeing to everything in the original purchase agreement. And they are agreeing to be liable for any and all obligations, liabilities, right, financial and otherwise in that original purchase agreement. And it's also saying that cash buyer is agreeing to hold harmless and indemnify the wholesaler for any of those that we listed, right? Any fees, claims, expenses, liabilities. So they're just like waiving liability for the wholesaler. So very important clause to have in here. Number two, this is also very important to have in your assignment agreement. Assignee hereby agrees to close on the property per the purchase agreement on or before the closing date, right? You want to enter the closing date of your purchase agreement in this section. If assignee doesn't close by this date, assignor shall have the right in their sole discretion to terminate this agreement, assign the purchase agreement to a third party, purchase the property, and take legal action against assignee for any and all damages or liability this causes. Further, assignee agrees to forfeit their deposit to assignor. Should assignor fail to act timely and take the above actions, the parties agree that assignor retains and is not waiving said rights and interest. So again, just in more simple terms, this just has the assignee agree to close by the closing date. And then if they don't close by the agreed upon date, you as the wholesaler now have the ability to take back that contract and reassign it to a different buyer, or you might decide to close on it yourself. Or if there's any consequences as a result of not being able to perform, this gives you the ability to take legal action against that cash buyer for dropping the ball and not performing their end of the deal. So, and again, it also just reinstates that their deposit was non-refundable and the wholesaler can certainly keep it. So, and lastly, 3, assignee has reviewed the purchase agreement and assignee fully understands the terms and conditions of this assignment addendum. So very simple. Again, we've used this exact assignment addendum with real estate purchase agreements, with the agreement that we have here with realtor contracts, and it's a fantastic assignment addendum, very simple to understand. But love to hear if you have any questions or anything that.
I mean, honestly, it's very thorough, and I'm glad that it's very thorough. And you kind of went kind of really deep into why everything is important in here. Personally, just being as a beginner, I don't think I'm going to use any other wholesale contract, at least, besides this one for now. Like, there are a lot of things that I didn't even think about, that need to be included. One, in this one, purchase and sale agreement to protect me and the seller, but then this one, it's like me and the buyer too, which is equally as important, right? So I guess before I, kind of go out and do my first wholesale deal with these contracts, any beginner tips that you have, any maybe like horror stories of like things that went wrong, things that you wish you would have known when you started first wholesaling about the contracts?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, I would read through it multiple times again. I know there's a lot of information. It can get really dry, and sometimes I'll catch myself reading a wholesale real estate contract and just kind of like space out because it's just very dull legal language. But review it a few times, highlight the sections, ask questions. Practice filling it out a few times, just so that. It's so important because when you're talking with a seller, when you're talking with an agent, the more you know about the contract, the more confident you'll appear, the more the more you'll be able to negotiate a better deal, just knowing the ins and outs of the contract.
Right.
Because signing a contract is a big deal for a seller. Sometimes there's these mental blocks, and your confidence in the contract, your ability to explain these in layman's terms to somebody else, not only helps you learn, Tim, but it also helps the seller get more comfortable in actually signing the agreement and actually doing the deal with you.
Yeah.
So if you're not confident about what's in this contract and being able to enter an agreement with the seller, then why would the seller be confident about signing a deal with you over someone who is very confident and can
Right.
explain everything and make them feel at ease with one of the biggest decisions of their entire life
Yeah.
in many cases, right?
Yeah.
So I would just say, take your time, print out a few copies if you need to, like practice filling it out as an example. And then, ask questions from us, of course, from people in our community, mentors, real estate agents, attorneys, whoever really to help you feel comfortable when you're making offers. Because this really is one of the most frequently used pieces of paper, agreements that you're going to be using as a wholesaler, as an investor. So, really take the time to understand it and, how to creatively structure offers to cater to sellers' needs too. I think a lot of newer investors, newer wholesalers, when they're structuring their wholesaling contracts, they'll focus only on price. And that's like the main thing that they'll focus on. But in order to get your deals accepted, your offers accepted by sellers, you have to go deeper than just the number. Of course, that's a big part of it. And sometimes that's the most important thing. But if you don't dig deeper and really understand the seller's situation, right? Why are they selling? Why are they moving? Is it voluntary? Is it involuntary? Where are they going to go next? How can you help solve their biggest concerns over selling? What are their biggest pain points with this whole process?
Right.
So if you can structure things outside of price, such as helping them with moving costs or even allowing them to stay in the property for 2 weeks after closing, or various things like that that you can structure to really meet their needs with this transaction, then that's going to put you ahead of 9 out of 10 other wholesalers and investors who might be making a similar offer but haven't taken the time to go a few layers deeper.
Who aren't thinking about them,
Right.
And really, at the end of the day, I feel like it's very important to think about all three parties: buyer, yourself, and the seller being, equally as important as the money you're getting from the buyer, right? So the fact that all of that is in here, to cater to any of the seller's needs is actually really good, because if they can stay for another 2 weeks because they don't have a place to live, that might be actually worth like $5 more grand to them, that they're going to pay you, So that's, that's a really good tip. You mentioned attorneys looking it over. Does that usually cost money? Is it easy to find one who deals with real estate contracts or wholesale contracts like this? I guess, in our state, California, but in any state in the U.S.
Yeah, in some states it's required to use attorneys for your real estate agreements. Like, for example, Illinois is one where you actually work with an attorney. They build in an attorney review period into the contracts a lot of the time, so that it acts almost like a contingency to where you actually review it with your attorney.
Right.
So in those states, like, that's just part of the transaction, and then the attorney actually closes the deal. So you'll inherently have an attorney involved in the transaction the whole time. In other states like California, it's not very common to have an attorney involved in transactions. However, it's always advised. It's interesting because, as an agent myself, as an investor, like, agents aren't really allowed to give legal advice. However, when you're working with contracts, like, you kind of are acting in some capacity like a lawyer.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is pretty easy to find attorneys to work with to review your contracts. If you know a licensed agent, I'm an agent myself, we have access to a legal hotline that you can always call and ask questions about contracts and legal situations between buyers and sellers. So, I've spent a lot of time, talking to lawyers that are provided as kind of part of the membership of, all the fees I have to pay to be a licensed agent. However, if you're not a licensed agent, then you probably know someone who is, and you can always ask them to leverage some of those resources. That way you can avoid paying fees. Because yes, like, attorneys do usually charge, a few $100 an hour to talk to some good ones. But there definitely are resources online that you can find attorneys pretty quickly, and they can either customize contracts for you or review existing contracts.
Yeah.
And they can at least help you, add terms or help you really understand what certain contracts mean.
Yeah. I mean, coming from you, and if you use this contract, I'm like fairly confident it's like 80% of the way there, if not 90, and just like one final look would really like kind of solidify this deal, make me feel better and confident actually moving forward with it. So yeah, I mean, thank you so much. I definitely learned a lot. This was one of the biggest humps as a beginner to go through, just because of how much legal verbiage is in these contracts. But they're really important, and thank you so much for going through every line and explaining it to me and why it's there. Hopefully I can use this soon in my first wholesale deal. So yeah, thank you very much again.
Yeah, no, thank you, Tim. I appreciate you being a student of the trade and really like being interested in what we're doing here. So always happy to help you understand and go through line by line on contracts. You know, that's what we love to help students do. And I just know how important these are, and like having the right contracts as well as knowing how to use them. This is really the lifeblood of any transaction. This is really where it happens. So. Yeah, appreciate it, and looking forward to seeing you close your first wholesale deal
Soon.
Awesome, guys. Well, for those of you, again, just a reminder, we have these contracts available for download for free. So go ahead and check them out. The link is in the description, or you can just go to realestateskills.com/contracts to download them there.